Hey everybody, I'm Johnny B. Truant, and the other fellow there is Sean Platt. This is for IndieRecon 2014 live, although I have no way of knowing whether anybody's actually watching us. So
Oh.
I sort of hope that people are watching us. I don't know. I haven't heard back in an email or anything, so we may be broadcasting in.
Hello into the void.
But I suppose in a worst case scenario, you could just play the video back, right? Like you just play the video back.
Yeah, you can, but this is also interesting because when you first start as an author, you don't have an audience, right? And you have to you have to speak as though you do, right? We've talked about that as far as like blogging and having your author's platform and what do I say? No one's listening. And it's a terrible feeling to think that you're talking and no one's hearing you and that you're all alone, but you kind of have to act as though you have a big audience anyway, even when you don't. And I think that's kind of where we are today, right? Like we don't know if anybody's listening, but that doesn't change the nature of what we're going to say. Um,
Oh, well, that's a perfect entree because I don't think anyone is watching. So why don't you go ahead and intro a little bit why email is important?
well, email is pretty much fundamental to any author who wants to not just write a book a year and kind of put it out there and see what happens, but wants to consistently nurture that relationship with their reader, which as an author is the most important relationship you have. Um, if you want to grow from book to book to book and from project to project to project and kind of take chances with your career too and write things that aren't necessarily, if you don't want to stick with one series and just follow up that series with more books in that series, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's a very succinct way to have success as an author. And in that case, some of your heavy lifting is done for you because people are looking for the next book in that series. But if you're thinking in any way beyond that, and even if that is what you want to do, there's a much, much better way to do that. And that's with email marketing because and we've heard this a lot from authors who say, I don't want to have a list. I don't want to send emails. And you don't have to, but you're just severely, severely handicapping how quickly you can grow, how big your reach is going to be, how diminished your ability to get other readers to kind of broadcast for you, because it's that relationship. And I know Amazon has that little button that says, click here and you're subscribing to your favorite authors, and we'll let you know when they have a book coming out. But that button doesn't work. I think I'm subscribed to, I don't know, maybe 50 authors, and I never, ever, ever get those emails. I get the regular mass market emails that they send out that tells me what books I should buy based on my search history or my buying history, but I don't get that specific, oh, you like Stephen King and Stephen King has a new book out. I don't get those. So you want to be able to have that individual one-on-one relationship with your reader. When somebody buys your book, you want to be able to send them an email for your next book that comes out. And not just that, you don't want to just use it as a broadcast mechanism to tell people when you have new stuff to buy. You really want to be able to nurture that relationship. You want to be able to give them short stories that you wrote just because you're practicing your craft. You want to be able to write about the process of your writing that book if that interests them. You want to be able to just kind of fuel that fire.
Yeah, the title of this, and still not sure if anybody's actually watching us, so this will be fun. Is how to here I'm looking at my phone here that I sent it. How to use email newsletters to tap your readers on the shoulder without aggravating them. And so everything that Sean was talking about there is, I mean, let's look at the way that indie authors use email and why, sort of as a global level. And like Sean said, you can't rely on Amazon or whatever, but a lot of people sort of don't don't even buy in on the idea of that I need to be able to tap them on the shoulder at all. And I'm using that term specifically because if you're broadcasting on Facebook, if you're broadcasting on Google+, if you even if you have a blog or a website, that's passive. That's people have to go to Facebook. They have to go to your blog. And if it's Facebook or Twitter or something else that's your sort of broadcast, or Amazon or whatever, those are platforms that other people own. and you don't necessarily even you don't have any control over them.
Your
So,
digital sharecropping.
which is a term that Sonia Simone used that we both really love. On your blog, you aren't sharecropping. You aren't tending someone else's land, especially if it's something that you actually own the hosting and all of that. But it's still passive. It's still people have to come to you. And with when you own your list, you're able to basically say, hey, I got something. Hey, I got something. And email used correctly is a good way of sort of deepening and building bonds with readers. So we actually have 6 imprints across Sterling and Stone, which is our company, and I'll just go ahead and fess up that we are still. It is a building year for us for email. We've been building
Yeah,
from
but there's
the ground
something interesting there too, actually, because a lot of authors too, and our third partner, Dave, he's firmly in this category where he feels like he doesn't want to bother people. You know, he doesn't want to send them an email because it's going to bother them. And I think that a lot of writers share that. You know, and the best thing an author can do for themselves in this context is kind of get over that, because you've already thought that your voice is worthy enough to have people buy your book. You've already thought that what you have to say or think is interesting enough that people are willing to spend their time to read it and their money to get it on their device. And so in that context, you're already raising your hand and saying, pay attention to me. Just take that one step further, because the people on your list have signed up to be on your list. Unless you're a jerk who's buying a list from somebody else, then you've earned all that attention already. So it actually makes sense to capitalize in it. And if you don't, you're actually not serving your reader as well as you're supposed to. And so a good example of that is that we haven't been emailing our readers like we're supposed to. Johnny and I both come from email marketing backgrounds where we've done a lot of work, before we were fiction authors, in building email funnels and that kind of thing. So we intrinsically understand it, but in our own fiction world, we've articulated it in a rather lackluster way, especially this last year, because we write a lot. We wrote a couple million words last year, and and we're still in producing mode right now. We have 6 lines, and we're trying very hard to build a really wide foundation at the bottom so we can scale vertically. And email has kind of been left by the wayside. But just yesterday, there was this big, long conversation on Google Plus where some of our core fans were having a conversation about how we hadn't emailed them. And they wanted to buy something that we're making right now, and they were looking for ways to buy it, and they hadn't gotten any emails yet. They wanted to, and they apologized. Sorry, we jumped the gun, but you hadn't emailed us yet. And that's a very clear case of us not emailing them when they want that email. So if somebody signs up for your list, it's for a reason. What you don't want to do is abuse that relationship. And what I mean by that is, emailing them stupid things that they don't care about, emailing them things that are irrelevant to why they signed up in the first place. As long as you keep your email clear and your communication friendly and in alignment with what they signed up for. And that doesn't have to just be about your books, and in fact it shouldn't be. If you write horror books and you have somebody who signed up for your horror list, then you can share like a trailer for a new horror film that came out that you think that just it looks fantastic. Send them the trailer and a few paragraphs about why you think this is amazing, why you think this book is or this movie is going to be great, why it connects to you, why the director is someone that you really like who understands the nature of horror and how it inspires you to write, because that will interest your ideal reader.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that you can use email. I think that the 101 way would be like new product announcements, and like Sean was talking about, broadcast. A slightly more advanced way is to use what's called email autoresponders to deepen your connection with a reader, because it basically, if they sign up on day 0, then you may set that they have they receive an email on day 1 and day 3 and day 6. So it's a way of sort of getting everybody up to speed. And maybe it's best not to talk about what we're currently doing with email, but what we plan to do with email. Does that make sense, Sean? As
Absolutely.
what we want to do. So our lines, I'll run through the lines. Sean and I write under our imprint is Realm and Sans. Sean and David Wright, who he was actually with us when we did the IndieRecon virtual event, although here we are virtual again. They write under Collective Inkwell. And so that's 2. We have a children's line, which is Guy Incognito, and all 3 of us write or will write for that. We have for authors, a nonfiction line, and not for authors, but for writers and creatives, that's called The Smarter Artist. We have an adult line, that's Lexi Maxwell. She used to do a lot of erotica and is now transitioning more into romance or just other genres, but it's still very adult content. And who am I forgetting? What's the one I'm forgetting?
LOL.
LOL, which is our comedy line. And we actually just recently split that off. It used to be with Realm and Sans. So what do you think is a good way to approach the email for those various imprints? Because I know you've thought some about this.
Well, they're all a little different, and that's the thing. You really want to identify your ideal reader. I don't think you can do a great job with any kind of email marketing, whether it's for books or anything, until you know who you're talking to. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, then you're going to waste most readers' time. And it's okay to talk to that one ideal reader and alienate or lose people who aren't aligned with you. Like, that's okay. You can't be afraid of that. We call that trimming the tribe, and that's a purely acceptable part of growth. Because if you're creating true art, it's going to resonate with some people, and it's going to alienate some people. And you, as the artist, have to be okay with that. You have to know that for me to truly touch this group over here, I'm going to maybe offend is a big word, but I'm just not going to resonate with these other people, and that's okay, because you can't pay for the growth over here without the cost of the loss over here. And so really knowing who you're talking to is an absolute perfect starting point. And across all those lines, it's different. With Collective Inkwell, we know people, they like horror, they like dark sci-fi. They definitely want to be scared. They want their heart to race a little bit, and they like other types of horror. They like character-driven horror too. They don't like our ideal reader does not like what we'd call torture porn, like movies like Hostel or Saw. Like, that's not the kind of horror that we're doing. It's more Stephen King style, very character-driven. Just this man finds himself in this fantastic situation. This woman is in this fantastical world, and she's coming to grips with it. And for Realm and Sans, Johnny and I tend to ask very big questions about the world that we live in, and we use fiction to kind of answer those questions for ourselves. So whether that's a kind of hardcore sci-fi story that's almost political, called The Beam, that takes place in the year 2097, or a kind of a gonzo western that's called Unicorn Western that takes place anytime, either the distant past or the future, we don't even know. We use our fiction to ask very big questions, and I think that our readers really love that. So we know that when we're emailing them, and we did a fair amount of this earlier in the year, and then we just kind of fell off, not because it was the right thing to do, but just because our schedules kind of...
Well, but to be fair, we are building something very, very large. If you go to sterlingandstone.net, you'll see what I'm talking about. So there are a lot of moving pieces here. We agree that email is super, super important, but we wanted to have the infrastructure first. I think for most authors, the first stop suggestion that we would pretty much always say is you need to have you need to have a list, and I would even put a list above a website. So if now you do need a place to start a list, so you
It's
need
hard to start a list without a website, and a free website like Blogger or WordPress, um, that's a lot harder to do because you can't put those email captures. And WordPress, by WordPress I mean WordPress.com. If you go to WordPress.org and just use the WordPress package, the software on your own domain, that's fantastic. That's what we used for all of our sites actually up until the sterlingandstone.net site, which is on a platform called Rainmaker, which is built on WordPress. So even within that, WordPress is just, it's a very, very good content management system and the best place to start your list.
All right, so that diversion actually started with me interrupting you, saying that we wanted to build our infrastructure, and that's why we haven't fully developed the email component. But
yeah,
it's part of our strategy. So we're going in loops here. So go back to you.
So anyway, with Lexi, we know that people they want those stories that basically it actually Lexi's a little bit like Realm and Sands in the way that it's asking questions. It's asking questions about the world through the character's eyes. But with Lexi, it's specifically how does sex relate to these characters' life and world and perspective. LOL, the only purpose of LOL is to make people laugh. Like, we want to write those stories to make people laugh out loud when they read them literally, which is why it's called LOL. Guy Incognito is for parents, because we made a very conscious, specific decision when building the Guy Incognito line that we don't want to market to children. It's harder to do. It's less rewarding. We would feel
there's all sorts of restrictions too.
Yeah, we not only are there restrictions, we would feel restricted. Like, what do we say? What's the right way to do this? And children are marketed to enough, and we feel that about our own children. And we just thought it made much more sense to market to the parents of children who want intelligent stories for their children to read. And I think that is a key thing to pick up just right there, the fact that you have to know who you're talking to. And even, it's not just the genre that you write in, because we're writing kids fiction here. This is kidlit. But we're not marketing to the kids, we're marketing to the parents, and that means that's who we're speaking to. That's our avatar. That's not our ideal reader. And there's an instance of where your ideal reader and the person you're talking to, there actually is a chasm between them. And then our other line is probably the line that you listening to this right now would care about most, which is the smarter artist. And our whole intent there, our ideal reader is somebody who wants to get smarter faster. They want to turn their creativity into their livelihood, and they want to avoid a lot of the stupid mistakes that we've already made on your behalf. Like, we've done it, we've figured out what works and what doesn't, and we only write really one nonfiction book per year. Although next year I think we're planning on doing a couple of shorter, punchier, just to the point.
But we also do things like Fiction Unboxed, which was the project where we wrote a novel live from scratch, and let everybody watch every bit of the detail. That's fictionunboxed.com. But that's the sort of thing that we do at Smarter Artists too. So that's all about education. So
it's also the home of the Self-Publishing podcast, which we do every week. And basically, it's our way to talk to the community of indie authors out there. But by no means do we stop with indie authors. It really is anyone who wants to alchemize their creativity into their career. And so each of those imprints has a very specific identity. And while there are ways to intelligently overlap them, it would be a mistake to write one email, because it would have such a diluted effect that it would almost be why bother, which is one of the reasons it's taking us so long to get an effective strategy together for email, because we're very big believers that we don't start something that we can't maintain. And that's a really important takeaway for you also. If you start something, you need to be able to see it through. And for me personally, I don't want to start emailing until we can actually have a strategy in place. And we know what you want to talk about autoresponders? Because there's...
Yeah, Yeah, I want to dial it. I want to dial it down a little bit because yes, I do want to do autoresponders, but just to get everybody enrolled here's an example of something that we just did. So of the lines, we used to be pretty good with email, and like I said, we've let that go fallow a little bit because we contact our audiences a lot through ways that aren't as direct as email. Like our podcast is a large broadcast hub. We're on social media and all of that stuff. We both had blogs where we had real active email lists. But here's something at Collective Inkwell, that list has probably done the best. And Collective Inkwell has been emailing their list of goners. They have an identity. They're a very specific group of people.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that for 1 second too, because that's important too. Each of your lines, well, not each of your lines, whoever you're communicating with, you really need to identify them and make them feel or know that they're part of a special exclusive group. Our story, Yesterday's Gone, made it very easy to name our little tribe goners. And for Realm and Sands, it was Outlaws, because our first book was Unicorn Western. So, hey, they're outlaws. But it also kind of had that a double meaning for us, because not only was it outlaws in the Western sense, it was we do things different at Realm and Sands, and we don't stick inside a genre. And we're outlaws, you're an outlaw, and it was a way of binding us together. So there is no right word, but you do want to identify your tribe.
They want to have a feeling of belonging. So with the goners, just yesterday, I think, maybe it was 2 days ago, Yesterday's Gone Season 5, which is Collective Inkwell's largest franchise, is the Yesterday's Gone serial. And they just released Season 5. Season 6 will be the end. And we did something kind of that not a lot of people are doing. We're selling direct at Sterling and Stone, and we have a continuity, like they belong. It's like an HBO of ebooks sort of a thing. But this is the first time where we said, okay, we're going to try KDP Select, and that's a whole other discussion. We're going to go back. We're going to try KDP Select for the first 90 days of this release, and because of that, we know that there are some of you who are Nook readers, who are Kobo readers, who read somewhere else, or that just plain want it fast. Like, this is an anticipated thing. So today, and that was 2 days ago, which would have been the 8th, so that's 7 days before launch on the 15th of October, today you can buy it direct from us. And that's kind of an odd proposition. It was not without its tech difficulties, but the idea of buying direct from an author, you keep 98% or whatever, 100% of the cost less just the commission for your credit card processor, and people have to sideload it. But I guess what I'm saying is that's not a frictionless sort of a process, but we were able to contact them and say, hey, do you want it? And a rather large response came in and bought directly from us. And that's the sort of thing we wouldn't have been able to do. We wouldn't have been able to explain it fully. We wouldn't have been able to go ahead and give them a buy link, buy it here, buy it now. We wouldn't have been able to communicate with them afterward when there were a few tech difficulties, because there's always these problems that come up. As a matter of fact, because of some of the difficulties, we are going to email them a bundle that's actually a Realm and Sands property called Cursed, which is right up that dark horror sort of alley, as a bonus. And those are all things we wouldn't have been able to do to, number one, offer something for sale, number two, explain and keep the lines of communication open, and then to reward them and try and turn some difficulties into some awesome things and turn people, like raving fans, without the capacity to email them directly. So that's one, is the ability to just to say, I have something going on. Here's something I need to tell you about right now. But what Sean was referring to when he prompted me on this question was autoresponders. So the best way to think of an autoresponder is it's used to catch people up to speed. So somebody can come at your into your fiction world, your lines, say, at any point in time. So there are people that have been reading Realm and Sands since Sean and I wrote the first Unicorn Western book. There are 9. And there are people who just kind of caught up with us when we did Fiction Unboxed and wrote a book called The Dream Engine, which is a very different book. It's a 100,000 word novel It was written under incredible constraints, like I said, in 30 days with 1,000 people watching us. And it's a very, very different book and a different way of reaching us. So the two readers who may have come watching the Self-Publishing podcast, watching Sean and I come together for the first time with Unicorn Western 1, is a different reader with a different level of knowledge, expectation, all of that, than somebody who came in with the Dream Engine or Axis of Aaron, which will release in a couple of weeks. And so what an email autoresponder does is it allows us to sort of explain who we are to anybody at any point. So if somebody joined our email list a year ago, they probably would have gotten everything in our autoresponder series, because it's unusual that anyone would make an autoresponder series that's still sending emails a year later. Usually at that point you're on the list, you're receiving broadcasts. You know, here's a new product, here's something that's going on, here's my newsletter if you do that. But the people who join us now, if we have an autoresponder series that runs for 3 months, say, will then get email 1, email 2, relative to when they join, if that makes any sense. So if you have an email that goes out 1 week plus 1, day 7, say, the person who joined us a year ago got that email a year ago minus 7 days. The people who joined a week ago just got it today, same email. It's relative to when you joined the list. And so again, we haven't fully implemented this, but we've wireframed some of these and written some of these emails. So, like I think the first one is just sort of a thank you, a welcome. Here, get your free books, because we have a lot of free books. And then I think the second one is, what kind of Realm and Sands reader are you? Which takes them on a tour through. You know, we write across multiple genres. Our hallmark is asking big questions. And we begin to familiarize them with us, so that by the end of that series, they've read a few blog posts, they've gotten to know our personalities and our voice, and so that's a way that we're able to do something new, and everybody's more on the same page, rather than like, well, wait a minute, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, a good way to think about it is, like, if you were to meet somebody right now and they were to say, well, what do you write? And what's your favorite book you've written? And if I could only read one thing, what should I read? What should I read next? Like, all these questions, if you're an enthusiastic author who's excited that somebody's reading your books, you would have a ton to say to them. But you can't just, if you were to have somebody sign up to your list and then send them a 4,000-word email that said everything you wanted to say, they would immediately tune off. Yes, your readers want to hear from you, but they don't want to be bombarded, and they don't want to be overwhelmed. So you need to find that way to give them, you know, a pretty decent amount of information about you and your work, and to lead them where you need them to go. But you also need to give them time to breathe and to absorb, and not to get, you know, bowled over by a fire hose of information. So the very best way to do that is to drip it to them. Give them time to read and absorb, and especially if you're giving them book choices over a long period of time, they need time to read that stuff. So, you know. And
sorry, just to insert something really quickly, you can insert things like, are you enjoying the book that you read? You wouldn't want to pester them for a review right away, but down the road, like, you can check back, because one of the things that happens is they may get an email with a link to a free book and then they forget about it, and so this is a way of reminding them. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's a way.
It's all good stuff. No, it's a way. You can't. The bad way to think about email is, this is a way to sell to my audience. If you do that, you're doing it wrong, and you're not going to be as successful, because people don't want to be sold to. People like to buy, but they don't necessarily want to be sold to, and that's a big distinction. So what you're doing is you're telling them about your work. You're sharing. You're sharing a link to your new book because they may want that, but that's not the only reason you email them. You need to email them because you're nurturing the relationship. You're not only getting to know, they're not only getting to know you better, you need to get to know them better also. And if you do that, you're going to have a better relationship with your audience, and you're going to grow a lot faster. Right.
So, I mean, let's take a look here. Email gives you a way to let people know when things are for sale. And as far as the not irritating them part, the example that I gave in our book, Write, Publish, Repeat, is when we were writing that, it was just toward the end of 2013, and Eminem was about to release the Marshall Mathers 2 LP album, and Sean and I both have a love of Eminem, and he had released a few
The peanut
tracks.
ones are good too.
Yes, that was a fantastic joke. The he had released Rap God and Berserk, I think, and so it was like, I was excited. I was waiting for this album, and so I said, Sean was like, oh, I can't wait until whatever day it was. And so I said, you need to remind me. You know what I mean? Like, you need to remind, because I don't want to miss it. Like, I write to music. That's the soundtrack of our stories. And so I said, don't forget. You got to remind me. And it made me think of, like, if Eminem had, and he probably does, I just wasn't paying attention, but like if there were something I could sign up for that I knew right then, right there, to sign up for that release, I wanted that, because I wanted to know right away. And it's like that with your readers too. Like they're usually joining the list because they're in that position. Like, I just finished Beam season 1, and I have to know what happens at the end with Micah and Nikolai, and so this is how you're fulfilling their desire by doing this. And I think that that's really important to remember when approaching email. Is you can't think of, I'm going to be selling.
Yeah, even us, we do this for a living, and one of our recent guests on the podcast, was Risa Walker, and she wrote the book Timebound. And Johnny had just finished Timebound, which I've since read it. Johnny talked me into it because he enjoyed it. But that's
the whole thing?
I read the whole thing. Yeah, I'm ready
Awesome.
for the sequel. Yeah. So and that's exactly it. He got to the end of that book and he said, "This is awesome. Like, I want the sequel." And he needed to sign up for her list. And see, that's instructive, because not only he wanted to go to her list so that he could be informed when that sequel came out, and he told a friend. That's the kind of reader you want. And you need to make it easy for them. You need to make it easy for them to do all of those things, to sign up for your list and to tell a friend. And the person who's going to sign up to your list is more inclined to tell their friends anyway, and you can use their list for that. In part of your autoresponder, one of those emails can nudge them to share it with a friend. Hey, do you have a friend who you know would just love this book? Here's an easy link to share, and you put a share button in that email. It's pretty simple. It's just a matter of doing it. And I think that most often the biggest hurdle for an author to get over is to believe that their readers want to hear from them.
So let's cover just a few of the nuts and bolts, and then we can move to questions. So if you're in the IndieRecon live audience and you have questions, I don't know, pass notes to people. You probably don't want to stand up, but we're going to move to questions soon. But the you need a website. Now, this is way, way, way too intricate to get into. Like, okay, well, here's how you set up whatever. But our baseline recommendations are a self-hosted WordPress blog for your site, but it can be anywhere. And most important, you need a page that you can link to that has a sign-up form for an email list on it. And our favorite email provider is Aweber. We've both been using them I've been using them for, I don't know, 6 years or something, and Sean's been about the same. And a lot of people like MailChimp because it's initially cheaper, but MailChimp has a few limitations that we don't particularly like.
If you expect to be awesome and sell a lot of books and get a lot of readers, then plan for your future and be Aweber, because they allow you to grow better. MailChimp.
The deliverability is better as well.
Yeah, deliverability is better. You can capture more names. MailChimp admittedly has a great starter, but they're just better at their funnels, right? Their free version is better. And
the other thing about Aweber is you can't move to it
later
with any facility at all. Right? You can, but everybody has to opt back in, which in practical terms means you will lose 90% of your list. You
can't migrate the list. So if you're planning on, look, I never want more than 500 readers on my list, MailChimp is probably your best solution. But if you're thinking, I want to have 5,000 readers on my list, I want that many people paying attention when I write a new book, then Aweber is a better solution for you. It's $19 a month for your first 5,000 leads, is what they call them. For your first 5,000 leads, it's $19 a month, and that's pretty good. Like, that's your career. It's worth it.
So I won't, like I said, I won't go through all the nuts and bolts, but basically you'll be able to grab a sign-up form, stick it on your website, and then you want to take that link and put it in the back of your books and basically give people a reason to sign up. It can't just be it, it it can't just sorry, I just got an email from Allie. A Weber is the email client that we recommend. AWEBER. I was trying to midstream think about that. But you want to be able to take the link of the page where you have put your email sign-up form, stick it in the back, and offer them a reason. Because if it's just like sign up for updates, like
Yeah,
that
no
would
one's going to sign up for
yeah,
that.
that would have gotten me with Time Bound to get the sequel, and it would have gotten me with Eminem, but like nobody else. You need a reason, and usually you want some. We call it a cookie. You want to give them a cookie. For us, it's access to a bunch of sort of protected areas on our website. For a lot of people, it may be a free book or a free short story, some basic reason to join.
And a really good tip there too is over deliver. Like whatever you promise, give them more. Like promise something awesome and then give them awesome in one. Because you just want to delight your readers. Like that is the best thing you can do, is just make them over the moon with who you are and what you do. And we offer I think our offer on if you want to be a Sterling and Stone starter, right? You get access to a little library, and I think there's 12 things that we promise, and we give them 15 immediately. You just get 15 different things, and you want to be able to over deliver at every possible time that you can, because that sticks with people. You're in the business, whether you write nonfiction or fiction, you're in the business of making people feel and making them think, and they'll remember the feeling that you left them with. If you promise them something and then you deliver on that promise and then give them something extra, they'll remember that feeling.
So we're going to move into questions now, but this is a little clunky because we're not there in person and we don't have some sort of a live comment feed. So if you have questions, I'm going to assume, since I can't see you, that somebody there will be gathering them. And since we don't just sit here, we're going to attempt, I guess, to answer one while we're waiting for others. And hey, big shout out to MGon, who says on Google Plus that he's watching. Always count on that.
Hey, MGon.
He was so enthusiastic during Fiction Unboxed. He's always enthusiastic.
MGon, you're in the Fiction Unboxed book. You get a little, you're in there. We even talk about your hearts. It's awesome.
He's gonna be so excited. All right, so we do have one question to begin with, and well, actually, there's actually two, and I think we've covered some of the details of these, but I'm gonna let's drill down on them. So, what was the number one way we were able to build our list? It's been discontinued. It's been offering stuff. Like if you go to, sorry, I'll answer and then I'll let you go. But the reason I hesitated is because we've done different things.
We've done so many things.
We've done so many different things. If you go to sterlingandstone.net, not .com, .net, you'll see that there's calls at the bottom of any of the pages in the sidebars to become a starter. And some of the content is we give away free content, but you have to be a member. Now, by the way, this is beyond probably the capabilities of most authors.
Let's start early. Let's start early because that is kind of high level, like short.
Okay, well, but it was what we did. But yes, go ahead. What's more applicable?
Well, how about something mid-range? The very first thing we did was just I think for the Inkwell it was just Dark Crossing shorts, maybe just a few. It was a few short stories that we had written, and we wrote them to be little short story bundles, but we gave one away free if you sign up for the list. As we got more sophisticated, one of the offers that worked really, really well, actually at Realm and Sands, it worked really well, but we changed it to this new version that Johnny was talking about because it was a little more automated, and this gets really hard to keep up with. But if you're still just burning, if you want to know how to get 500 people on your list, this is a pretty good way to do it. And that's offer. Well, you also need more titles than just the one, because our offer was, okay, we have this library of, this was the end of last year, and we had put out, like, I don't know, 8 titles over the year, so we had a nice little catalog, and our offer was, just tell us which title you want. If you sign up for the list and then reply to this email with the list of with the name of the title that you want, we'll email it back to you. And that worked really well. That was great for getting signups, but it also meant, it was very hands-on. It was very manual. It meant a lot of time in email, which is good because you're bonding with each of those readers, and it doesn't take long to give them a happy greeting when you're attaching the email or when you're attaching the book, to ask a question. And a lot of times readers say really, really nice things. It's not just, hey, give me my free book, although you will get some of that, so be prepared. But a lot of people are really nice too, and they'll say, oh, I can't believe that your stupid unicorn book made me cry. Like, we got that a lot, actually. And
I also got that for my stupid bagel book.
And that's really rewarding. Like, as an author, you want that kind of stuff, and you won't get that when it is just automated. But you have to know where that line is, because right now we would spend all of our time in email if we didn't automate some of this. And it's a better offer. You opt in now and you get access to a whole members library with all kinds of stuff that you can download, and that's really cool. So it's just a matter of paying attention to where you are in your career, what you have to offer, and then offering the very, very best thing that you can, and don't cheap out. If you have a $5 book and you're worried about giving that away, just know that there's a lot of value in just impressing your reader and having them love you.
Right. All right. So this is a little bit clunky. Just to let everybody know, we have no idea what's going on with you guys, and so we can't even take a bow or anything. So I don't. It's officially. I know I'm not supposed to go. We're not supposed to go past 4:55 Eastern time, which, as my clock goes, is 8 minutes from now. So I have one other question so far, and we can answer that. Actually, I have 2 questions. Just got another one. But let me just do real quick, because we won't get a walking off the stage, and I just want to say, to find us, the best places, if you're interested in what we do, is our self-publishing podcast is every week. It's on iTunes and all the normal places. And actually, your bags. Trish McCallan actually sent a photo. I don't know if you saw this, Sean, of the Sterling and Stone logo on the bag. So sterlingandstone.net. We publish 2 or 3 times a day. All right, so let's move to these questions. We have 2 more. The way that Sean and I diarrhea mouth, I don't know that we'd get to more than 2 anyway. So the first is, what is the most important element to include in a newsletter, like free content or what else? We've actually sort of answered that, but maybe we pin it down on newsletters specifically. Do you think?
I would say the most important element is yourself. I think authors are. I can tell you what you don't want to do, and that's be super professional and think I'm sending a newsletter and It's got to be formal. And don't do that. Put yourself on there. It's pretty simple. Don't be long and wordy at all. Email is an art. It really, really is, and you'll get better at it the more you do. You don't want to be long and wordy. Shorter sentences are better because people are, reading them on their phones often. One really great trick, it's not really a trick, but it's something to do, is to get them over to your site. So have a short email that sends people from the email over to a web page somewhere, to a blog post, something longer that you've written, something more thoughtful. Send them to a video that you thought was funny or awesome, because you do want to encourage that reader to click your links, so that when there is that link of something that you want them to for sure see or for sure buy or a special offer, you want them to have had good experiences with clicking your links, so that they trust that link and it's natural behavior for them. That means never, ever, ever linking to something that isn't awesome. It can be stuff that's, here's a good example. Today, Dave sent us now that's our horror writer partner. He sent us a link to the new Maroon 5 video called Animal.
Which I really liked a lot more than I would have thought I was going to.
Right, it's pretty boss. It's pretty boss, and it's exactly the kind of thing that he should share with the collective Inkwell audience. Adam Levine is all covered in blood, and he's stalking prey. But that goes with that audience. So what Dave could do is send that email just like he would send it to us, but instead of, hey, check this out. Like, we got one sentence, but it would make more sense for if Dave was sending this as an email to give a little introductory paragraph about why he thought this was awesome, a link to the video, and then a little closer. See you next week. Something very simple, but there are some people in your audience who will really start to look forward to those emails.
All right. Next question is, what kind of headlines do you use to get people to open your mail, and what do you actually include in your letter? Well, Sean just actually addressed the includes, so I'm going to back away from that one because we've already sort of handled that, and I want to get to these others. But what sort of headlines? That's actually, you're speaking our language right there. Sean and I both came up through copywriting, marketing, copyblogger.com, if you know Copyblogger, and you should, is So Sean writes most of the email headlines. You want to invoke curiosity without being a jerk. The jerkiest that I think I've been with my readers is I had a series. I still have a series, but I've completed writing it, called Fat Vampire, and there was a long pause between 4 and 5. And when I finished 5, finished the draft, I sent an email that said, "Fat Vampire is done." And then the first email inside was ... Well, I'm done with the first draft, like, basically. And I got a lot of emails like that. That is teasing, and that's about as far as I want to go, because it wasn't really done. It wasn't ready for purchase, but it was done for me, and I wanted to share it and say how excited I was. But it got people to open it, and I did get a lot of people that were like, "Ah, you jerk." You know, I got some of those, like, good-naturedly. But you want to get that open, and then you want to get that click in as best of a ways you can get without getting you don't want to be exploiting them.
Well, yeah, to put a finer point on that, it's okay to go for the click and the open, but you absolutely 100% of the time must deliver on your promise, because you have to think of your headline as a promise. You're saying, my headline is saying that you should expect this, and if you open it, like if Johnny's Fat Vampire is done, and you opened it and he said, "Just kidding," he didn't actually explain the headline. He was just like, I got you. That's terrible. Don't ever do that, because you're decaying trust. And trust is the most important thing that you have between you and your reader. So you want to nurture that. Yes, do an incendiary headline that gets opened. That works, but deliver on the promise and over-deliver if you can.
My clock shows 2 minutes, so we're going to go right up to the wire. I have one last question, and this will conclude on this one. How do you automate sending content via email? I think a large part of that is the autoresponders that we were talking about. But beyond that, we don't automate it. I think that the catching people up via autoresponders is as automated as you want to get. And the rest is you got to write them.
You have to write them. Yeah, you don't want to over-automate that anyway, because it's you touching base with your audience. And as new things come into your life, like Dave couldn't have automated the Maroon 5 email. He just saw that video today and shared it. It's almost like if you're on social media and there are things that you share on social media, some of those things are a little more special and they're worth sharing with your readers in email, and it's a great way to touch base with them and let them know that you're thinking about them and not just when you have a new book to sell. That's the wrong time to touch base with your reader, unless you've been doing it all along.
And the whole point is to be human. Like that's why you don't want to write as a quote professional. You want to be human with your readers, and that means just writing an email. And it also means not making a huge deal. Like, you can write it like you would to a friend. And the more you automate, the bigger stick you throw into that and mess it up. So I have exactly 4:55 Eastern time. So I guess we should be done. This is a little bit of an anticlimax because I feel like we're just kind of ending and from where we're standing, and we don't know.
That's all right.
Like,
We're doing what we're supposed to
at
do.
least we know you guys are watching now. That's
Yeah,
good.
well, we're not getting the chance to over deliver is the problem. We
Right.
fulfilled our promise, but we
We
can't
want to
really
over
over
deliver.
deliver. But that's all right. Thank you guys for listening.
And Allie Cross did send me an email saying you guys had some technical difficulties, and that she asked if it would be available for replay, and it will. It's on YouTube. It's actually on our YouTube channel. If I assume they're going to share a link, but it's youtube.com/sterlingandstone. And like I said, if you want more from us, Self-Publishing Podcast and sterlingandstone.net. So I guess we're going to be done, right?
Well, it looks that way.
All right, fantastic, and we'll thanks for inviting us, everybody. And I would say we'll see you later, but we don't actually see you now, so I guess maybe we'll see you around. And,
have a great weekend. You can say that. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend. If you pop up on the podcast, and be sure to say hi. So this has been Johnny B. Truant, Sean Platt from the Self-Publishing Podcast and Sterling and Stone. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.